madoda wayabula basabla mhlaba phila kuwo ngoba kaloku madoda konke madoda sihlala sinuka abantu ababulawa ngabanye abantu kanjani namadoda akhala abantwana athi babathatha amadoda bathi Daveyton yayindawo yabantu abenothando baphambili basebatwini namhlanje sihlala sila sonke madoda sibazali imibuzo engapheliyo yiyalanda madoda Mzantsi Afrika ukwibhula lethu madoda kwasisikalali Afrika ewe madoda umthandazo ukhona emthwileni ndiyazivuma isetho sona madoda kodwa phambili uthixo ukhona bakudala kwabanjula kotatamkhulu bethu bathi bebengena kula mhlaba madoda salila sangama madoda bebulawa ngabanye abantu kodwa namhlanje bakubelaxolo ngoba kaloku igama laziyo elibawu baxolela babafonayo thina yayekala ndakithetha yamadoda babalelefakalinengxakizayo kodwa uxolo phambili madoda basenathi nasekwa kitlaskabaxolela abanye abantu ewe madoda Daveyton yayindawo bakubuya madoda ntasasikhathi ziyazi kule ndawo bakubuya qala madoda bakuthandwe ebantwini ukuze siphila kula mhlaba ngolo nyabo akukhamsi madoda njengamendlela ndiyibonayo bathika abantwana bethu bavanya uphe bakubekwa njalo amandulo sesizala abantwana kodwa sinethembelitsha sinethembelithi madoda ngenilanga kusikhaya kodwa njengelo mhlaba namhlanje ulutha madoda nalaphathi kwebridge yingalo landibonayo kula Mzantsi Afrika bafakele madoda iDaveyton bemntakakuqala nayekala landithetha yamadoda ngeham yo
Ngubo bakhona bomama mhlawumbe abanamehla amade ushadile happily ngicela ukuthi singakhali sikhale sibuye nganene unabantwana abathathu ekhaya ke hayi bashaya ulimi likashaka bashaya ulimi likashaka ekhaya isiZulu kodwa ke bakungubo ke i-linguist ngoba ngaphandle ukuthi ukhulume nesilungu futhi nesiZulu uyasazi uyakwazi ukukhuluma nangeSotho futhi nangeSigulu practice vertaal man kaso nesixhosa futhi uyakwazi ukuthetha manje ke kwakungubo angazi nakhumbula le college which was the college Daveyton Training College. Do you remember that college? Yeah, but all of them without any fail they became leaders in various capacity across different towns and townships because it was about quality and merit. Bab'Ngubo ke waqhubeka futhi uthi maqeda ke isikolo wayothola iziqu zakhe zase university eFort Hare lapho khona wafunda kuMandela nakhumbula iFort Hare and waphinda futhi wafunda nase University of South Africa iUNISA lapho khona wathola iziqu ze-analytical chemistry. Nizwile le analytical chemistry ukhona abantu bathi bafuna ukuba ne-profession umuntu amba uspecialize nge-biblical studies right ababishop nabo bakutshela abafundisi banesikolo sabafundisi la bafundiswa khona ngayo ngini yokufundisa theology yabona so wena uhambe wenza i-degree biblical studies angazi ufuna umfundisi nge-biblical studies or ufuna ukusebenza ucontribute lapho Bab'Ngubo ke azangaphela e-Fort Hare nase-UNISA waphinda futhi Bab'Ngubo wathola iziqu ze-supervisory management level 1 and level 2, group leadership, NASA NEET achievement program, targeted selection program, ECLING program, advertising and promotion, presentation course, Windows 95, MS Word, Excel spreadsheet, sponsorship, communication finance for non-financial managers. Iziqu zakhe lezo. Umsebenzi ke awenzile empilweni yakho kwakungu ngaphambi kokuthi athathe umhlala phansi. Usebenzile ke eNew York. Ningathi ngiyadukwana ethi New York. Usebenzile eWashington. Le la kukhona uthola uTrump esebenzela khona. I-office kaTrump lilapho ke la besebenza khona eWashington. Kodwa hayi i-office kaTrump. Edolobheni laseWashington. Usebenzile eIsrael. Usebenzile eTaiwan, usebenzile eDurban, usebenzile eKapa, usebenzile eLondon. Big Ben, namazo Big Ben. Ila washe cool laseLondon. Maqala kushaya awaledi gang. Yabona? Kodwa ngiyasola uNgubo umuntu wakudala. Yazi khona le moto bewahamba ngayo uNgubo iviolent ka 1966. Mawe start njengoba kubusika. Ithatha isikhathi ukustarta. Ithi into eyiningi angizwani. Angizwani. Lo violent ka 1966. Yayithandwa kakhulu violent le. Yeah. Manje ke umsebenzi ke futhi awenzile ubeku Zabatwa Training Research and Development, the project manager from 2011. And then ama institution enye futhi sebenze Caltex Oil South Africa, Chevron South Africa, the corporate affairs manager. And then usebenzile futhi etrician marketing. Kumbula kuziquza bekune marketing la niyakhumbula. So bengafunela ukudlala. Ukuthi kwalisi sikhwama ngasemuva. Bakafuna ukusebenzisa lezi course ezitholile. And then the general manager and marketing. Babungu bafuthi usebenzile engine petroleum. Lapha beka assistant employee relationship. Ushithi iminyaka yakhe early asakhula ke lo mnyaka leyo. Futhi ube assistant employee relations manager. Sabanenkinga ze labor relation nama union. Nangu babungu. Will guide you. Public affairs manager. And then bekasha futhi ke in the budget controllers enzile, beka district area manager. Nabona ukhula khona. Abanye abantu ezothi masebashonile kukhulunywa ngabo. Bathi wazalwa, wadla kakhulu, wafa. Very profile. And then ube engine brand manager. And then waba futhi naku advertising and promotion manager. Yasiva never sikuzakhe nomsebenzi wakhe. But manager. He was a manager. Yeah. Manager. Then he was also Mobiles Oil South Africa, lab technician. At some point he was also a senior lab technician and a lab supervisory manager. Who is the futhi umsebenzi we community affairs? Lapho khona bekabheke umsebenzi ofana nama student funding, ama bursaries, nama college. Inkulu iBhayibheli. Asile ngcwadi seBhayibheli bathi sililo. Nayazi ukuthuthukiseni engine summer series. Le abafuthi one of the 5 major athletic events in the world. And it also was successful use of the Move Land King as a property for sales promotion campaign. Remember, Mutu marketing food, right? Kule list yake ma achievement wake, wafuna marketing, waba a marketing manager as well. The organizing of the successful tour of Harlem and Globetrotters and the use of property as a brand and a sales promotion tool. Now, lungs were very slow. The numbers are we will stay we activist. We will stay we community builder. We will stay umholi umphakathi. Angithi asithole ngendlela ezinjani. Ube usihlalo Civic Association as a Daveyton, DIC. He was the chairperson of the ballroom dance. Yeah. I'm not showing you that. He was the chairman of the Association of Crutches. He was the executive member of the Association of the Disabled. He was a volunteer teacher for extra classes, metric. That's a student. So, Mama Paul.
Actually go through it, but generally, ngizofuna nje to go through yonke ilokuza in that narrative sense. Now, here is where I want to start. I want to thank again the people, the heritage. I think bonke njengoba benibabona bemisiwe lana ngenxa yokuthi kubalulekile kakhulu, just like uRambhawu bekhuluma and nabo bonke bebekhuluma ngokubaluleka kokuthi i-legacy yethu, i-history yethu funeka nayo igcineke ngenxa yokuthi esikhathini esiningi singabantu asiyigcini i-history yethu. I want to start ngokuthi quote what I'm told is an Ethiopian saying, and in English the saying, it says, until the lions have got their own historians, tales of hunting will always favor the hunter. Let me just say it once more. Until the lions have got their own historians, tales of hunting will always favor the hunter. Because what is fundayo is the hunter, who actually say, ya jump the lion, I shaya la mapesulu, and the enye yaki vela mapa shaya. That is the books as fundayo. Whereas lions bezina my historians ask, bezatuna manga lawyer. What did you say? And that is why you find even today in South Africa, the history books, most of them are based on what the colonizers are saying. Even as a scholar, this is what has gone on. I know it long since Scotty, I was looking at what it was a book, but in grade 4. And somewhere there is a chapter about my city or my town or something to that effect. And what they are discussing there, the towns they are talking about, for example, 1 year ago was Stellenbosch. And now having stayed years in Cape Town, I just could not understand the relevance of a child while I look in a Stellenbosch. Except with the Stellenbosch, Claro Ruperti, the Stellenbosch University, and then there are farms and whatever, these wine farms. But Abatona to need so that if he writes about the history. So I think for me, what we are saying is a start. Like the lions, we've got to have our historians so that those stories, Nati, will be able to favor our own people. There is also the second thing, before I agreed by party of this heritage because I thought this will be like a brick wall or rather like a brick to be able to build this big thing, a heritage. I am actually grateful you asked me, I must come and contribute in this building here. So I'm really grateful and excited to come and give this particular lecture. Now, when you got a poster which was advertising this event, and I was looking at it, the way and what it was said, the 70th anniversary or celebration of Daveyton. When they asked me and I saw that poster, I want to say, I was very skeptical. Is there anything to celebrate with the 70 years yes, at Daveyton now? Because the idea at Daveyton was not the idea to it was an idea of the Nationalist Party government. In fact, more so those who were closer, the people from the so-called non-European Affairs Department, Benoni City then, or Matthews, Iceland and others. I'll talk more about those people. This was their idea of establishing Daveyton. And so I was asking, what is it to celebrate? And that is why I need to be skeptical. But later, I thought it is good, but maybe we must celebrate. Because what we are celebrating is the human spirit, survival of the human spirit. Because our people were dumped in the midst of nowhere. And this is where Daveyton started. And so I am just simply saying, the mere fact that for these 70 years, we have survived. Abazalbe survived. I think, yes, that is the celebration we are about. People at times want to know about some of these things. What are my sources, the knowledge, the information? Where are these things? Where did I have this knowledge? Well, let me tell you, the knowledge here about Daveyton comes from a document which is called an informal publication of the Department of Native Affairs. This document, April 1955. I have other documents like this one in the Commanding High's Committee Control. Patrick Bond, who's been a professor, was a late mover, but when I knew Patrick Bond, he was not a professor then. I am also looking at SIRR, the South African Locus of Race Relations, Urban Policy and Housing, which was written also by Paul Handler. Now, Paul Handler and Patrick Bond were part of what was called the Plan Act. And one of the guys there, Max Swilling, is a professor at Stellenbosch. And I will tell you how we interacted with these people. Then, of course, there's the other one, the politics on the home front. All of these books in Kulmangazo, they talk about the townships, they talk about Intestile, they quote some of us. As here they are quoting us rightly and wrongly. There's another one about Imikuku, Iraheri Mashabel. God bless his soul, he's late, he was a journalist of the newspaper Star. There's another one, the Paths to Power, Paul Handler. And then there's one also, the townships of the PWV, Iraheri Mashabel. Now, on top of that, I have, of course, taken any information. This is the Black Local Authorities Act. And there are said things, as called Alana, which I will also read for you, concerning the Daveyton. I have also information, which is documents from the High Court, where myself, I was the first applicant, myself, Daveytons Ngubo. The second applicant was Stephen Sawana. And the third applicant were the David Undertakers. And the last guy was Bab'James Ngubo, whereby we had taken the Benoni Council, Nabo Eskom to High Court. I have, of course, the last one, the Daveyton Urban Development Perspective, which, of course, we had actually been working now with these guys even at that time about what we thought Daveyton should be. You see, we were the first to form the basis of a greater Benoni, because we just felt that this thing is not working, of having a Benoni Town Council and what have you, and then we've got the Daveyton on the one side. So we were the first one to actually put the bricks. You must be able to dissolve, and which we won, get rid of the so-called Daveyton Council, and we were then negotiating the Benoni. And also those things of putting Eskom aside, this is what we did. And the last part here, I'm grateful, and I want to acknowledge a guy in Namaz, but Usimangaliso Samuel Maninga, because he wrote a dissertation and submitted it as partial fulfillment of the requirements for a degree. I think he was doing a master's. And I'm grateful to this gentleman simply because there are things which he spoke about as very, very specific, and I've used that. So when I'm saying here, I'm trying to tell you again, this knowledge you should be able at the end to give you a very good background about Daveyton, the establishment here. So I've gone to great lengths for putting told as much information as I possibly can. And I want to say this, we put on record. How's Barbara? How's Barbara? I'm sorry, Osis Barbara is a journalist, and he's one person, and ngimthemba kakhulu because I even know the family yakhe. Mntana kababa uMaroleni, if benazi uMaroleni, owaye principal le kala kuMathiyo Tenga, and then wayena ama shops akhe lapho. Barbara is mntana kababa uMaroleni, and she also comes from exile. Thank you, Mama. So why ngimaphakamisa is because I am saying, if there's any one other person engimthembayo in drawing up and writing up on Daveyton and everything else that happens, I am going to do it now. I want to put that on record. I am going to put down, if there are going to be documents and to share and give, and a lot of the stuff which I brought in giving, I will do that, Mrs. Brenda. So that tells you how much I trust in her. She will, she will have the information. The information between me and I. Daveyton, in accordance with zonke lezinto ezilapha, was established in 1955. And in fact, let me put what I want to do. I want to give you the background of Daveyton Yonke as is, and then I want to tell you about the resistance which followed thereafter, and then I want to talk about the different organizations which led the struggle, the community. And of course, I am going to be also arrogant, if you want to call that, ngokuthi I must actually say and compare the civic movement of the past and what I see today. Ngizoba arrogant in the sense yokuthi ngithi I'm going to challenge these organizations, the community. Uguti, how embedded are they in the community? How committed are they with community? Maybe I need to even say up front, Uguti, I have respect for all organizations, but I was told Uguti Sanko is what came up from Tina and the civic into South African National Civic Organization. But I'm afraid what I see throughout the whole country, the civics have become just one of those branches of the ANC as well. And I see most of them are more interested in getting a position to go to parliament or to INI and everything else. And they don't start where I think they should be starting, in the community. That's why I say people may not like my view and so forth, but I would like to leave that because I would want to canvass that view again. So, again, Kulum about Daveyton having been established. Why was it necessary to establish a township like Daveyton? And where did the people live at Daveyton? About over 18 years. They had also a table where they showed how many males, how many females, which were under 18. And of the Bantu Bonke Laba, which at that time they talk about 23,225 people, that is 1 month thereafter. They have here in this table how many Xhosas, how many Zulus, Swazis and Ndebele, North Sotho, Southern Sotho, Shananzonga, Venda, and others. So, they were determined, very much determined, to divide Daveyton into these ethnic groups. And if this experiment had succeeded, it is obvious that it was going to be transplanted throughout the whole Israel. Any township would have been put according to those different things. And to some extent, we must be able to say, having tried to divide us in that way, in some other ways, it did happen. But we are moving since we are leaving, and so on. To some extent, it did look like that, because that is what they wanted. So again, although I said Abantu Bale Chwala as a site and service scheme, you were given a site, which of course they already put in the toilet, but there was no building of the house at that time. But the actual official opening, yes, at Daveyton, was April 16, 1955. The actual opening, when everyone came in. And I notice when I look at these documents where they say at that time, that occasion, Maguvulwa Daveyton officially, it was attended by Councillor Davey, the guy after whom Daveyton is named. He was there, Maguvulwa Lord. There was also a guy out of Lionel Kent, Councillor Lionel Kent. He ordered before he changed in Glasgow. It was called the Lionel Kent Center. And of course, there was also a mayoress lapaya, Umama Wuto Councillor Nancy McDowell, of which Namaj is sending Nancy McDowell, which was called after that mayoress day. So again, having put in Abantu English like that, They then built a center in 1956, a civic center, which you see lapha eSkwerini, opposite eholweni. That was the civic center which was built in 1956. And next to it, of course, they built the library, and they built the clinic, and they also built that creche. So, as you would know, they also later on of course, later on, and I'll just skip Lama dates in that they building the different shops as we corner there. So, if you went to get to the civic center there, I don't know if they still kept that, but they laid a foundation there. You know, like when they built, they put up a foundation like there, in little till. And that foundation stone, which was put there in 16th April, it was put by a guy called Dr. Aiselen, who was Secretary of the Native Affairs Foundation. I'm trying to stress Lamagama, Oguti, these are the guys who were the architects, who were following this thing. Your words are going to separate, and these are the guys, these Gratizabo, Ziseko Nanamach, or Aislen, or Moki, or Taton. And these people were the main guys. And that's why I mentioned it, even 30 years after democracy, we still have this Strati as Bizabonke Labantu. I think comrade program director about one of the things, some assignment in Israel. I was on assignment to go to Jerusalem, and I know that country. I traveled right up the north towards the almost towards the Golan Heights border, Golan Heights, and right down to the south, the Black Sea, about the Eilat. And I've been to Tel Aviv and whatever and so forth. Never mind Gaza, is the way it is. I have not seen any one street, Sama Judah, Esmiza, Esnekama, Lama German. There's no street. And I'm wondering, why we have Nkurumangati like Daveyton. That's why I doubt humanity. I respect the organization like Osanko. But I say, looking back at our history, we should not be having more Eastland Street. We should not be having more Taton. We should not be having more Moki. I can show you Lana Moki. But I've already told you what you are Secretary of Native Affairs. So, I am deliberately mentioning some of these details. I don't necessarily have to, but I'm just mentioning it and what include. So again, other things which of course were built, as you are aware, was a police station, a post office, a police barracks, because I had a police sakala, and so forth. Now, I think jump again quickly during that period of time, Daveyton was run, amongst other things. There was the Daveyton Advisory Committee, which consisted again of black representatives from the committee of Daveyton. Now, Ilendoman is born. Ilendoman is born. He advisory committee. But here is the thing. They had these people like Lokshin, as some advisory committee. But then, they were supposed to be the people who are runners. They are supposed to be the people who are in charge. However, the rest of the members by this advisory board were white officials who were appointed by the Department of Native Affairs. And let me read Mutibati in this particular aspect in Kumangai. You have this advisory board, which is supposed to be Daveyton Bamnyama. They are supposed to be running Daveyton and what have you. But then they had Abelu, who were actually given to this board. The ones who were given, notable amongst them, were Matthewson, were Lionel Kent, was Hild, was Davey, was Moki, and McDonald. These people were seconded to the advisory board, Yabantu, Obakuma Hungela, and others. But Abelung were there. And these guys were toothless. They could not do anything because the guys were calling the shots before Abelung now. And then what local say 1961, the Urban Bantu Councils Act was enacted, which provided for the establishment of urban Bantu councils. This was also in line with the Bantu in European Acts Bill of 1961. Now, at times they make angry, lazy, but let me just give, because I want to give the facts. So, what for you again this urban Bantu council nayo? Kwafuneka kukhethwa abantu abamnyama nabo futhi ukuthi yibo manje sekuyibo abarana lama council and what have you. But again, even those also were just as useless because they did not have any other powers. Nyangizwa ngikhuluma ngeDaveyton ngokuza kwayo ukuthi iza kanjani, who is supposed to be in charge and what have you. Abantu were never being in charge. What is even more was that they had taken a deliberate decision ukuthi government of the day will not pay for any of these servants. Instead, that we shall pay Tina through rent, electricity, and all other things. Abantu abamnyama kufuneka babhadale, sibhadala la salaries abo bonke labantu labo. So, again, the Black Local Authority of Daveyton, after Lao Food, then came in the other ones as our community councils. You know what I'm trying to give meetings I'm an aware as a half because I want to go to the other more important things is that all of these things changing amagama. Oh, welcome home, you've come in at the right time. So, the Daveyton Urban Bantu Council was replaced by the Daveyton Community Council in May 1978. There were all these councils, starting from us, I report, the Urban Council, Community Council, Yonkelet, and so forth. And as on, all of these things were useless. So again, in 1978 to 1984, the Daveyton Council experienced a rising unpopularity for rent increases and eviction of rent defaulters and squatters. Now, like action again, this became also these councils, especially after the introduction in 1982. Yeah, what they call it black local authorities. Iyo lezi nabantu bazabana, mayors, abantu abamnyama nani, etc., etc. Abanye benu will remember, because again, I have a personal experience of my own brother. If ubunga padali rent or usemuva rent, after 7 days, you are evicted. After 7 days, you know now, sis. Then they take his into Zako, they throw them outside. And the very corrupt councillors, I'm giving this background, who was even in the present. The very councillors were then able to so that corruption, I can't imagine the corruption is with even some of our councillors. The old councillors were doing those things. And that is, I'm trying to say, Witi, keep on going backward and Witi. If as civics, we were fighting that sort of thing, wrong, the corruption, why are the civics today not fighting the corruption as of our councillors as well? So I'm deliberately coming now the story, what was happening? Whether it was the advisory board, even councils and what have you, our people, even not like Daveyton, we did not have the right to land. We did not own the land. The land belonged to the Benoni Council, le part in non-European affairs. So you could not, there was no free title, no nothing, because we had to pay and pay for our servants now. And so it continued that way. Now, I think with that sort of background, we summarize because we go on to something else, is that all these different body structures which were set up, it started making people very angry in many, many ways. The very issue of putting up about Daveyton, the first people to actually resist, or the first people to be anti the laws effectively, that they were arrested and jailed round about 1962. Mandela batwalele Robben Island, abantu bala Daveyton. The one who got 20 years ngaso skati, ubabumlambo. I saw a photo lapha eka Samuel Mwendani, Michael Mwendani. Benibonisile lapha is another person also. Unfortunately, I tried to get hold of the other third party, Sapila, Simon Ngozi, who like Crystal Park. And there were others as well. They got 10 years, Abanye 15 years, and Babumlam was 20 years. No Mandela, those were people from Light Daveyton. That was the first group in the first lot. So there's been an issue, a struggle from a Daveyton. So, having said that, with all these structures, there's corner, and the way the whole things, these structures were based, they were going to keep on squeezing about for the money, and that led in 1980 to a resistance from our party, the Daveyton Action Committee. We then started formulating and coming together and actually saying, this thing here, rent, is actually killing our people, and at the same time it's getting them thrown out of izindlu. So there were many people here, and it's important that you should know that civic engikhuluma ngayo. Before it, because I'll keep on jumping into this, because I think I'm also trying to teach or trying to actually throw something of nearby Tabana. In members, the civic yet were not party political, as it were. There was not, but there were sympathizers by ANC. I was ANC linked because Bemvela, obviously from electoral data from the school, the ANC. But we had other people who were strictly from the Black Consciousness movement, like Kwenkwenkong. He did 5 years ago in 1989, or Fuzi. The students which we incorporated into the civic, or Numan, and others, Nabalandela, Bona or Kaifas Nyo. Obviously, they were part of the MDM ANC leaning. They were community members. But we call not Dr. Mzaman. I've said it again, with, I think it was the first urologist, Yomdumyama based, and the only person, if Mandela could trust, which he could go to Bab'James Ngubo and to go and actually look at him. We had the first black civil engineer in South Africa from Evans. He was part of us in that group. We knew each other. There was nothing like a chairman or a secretary, none. Even Minamogwami, I was in the forefront, but I was really a spokesperson more than anything else. You had other people like Lobaba Dona, Babus Kosan. You had other people, so people were to be civic. You had Babus Kosan. Babus Kosan was not a member in SACTU. Instead, he was deputy secretary in NACTU. And by the way, I must add, during 2009-12, Umpegi was actually the president. Ubab Mashwamula was our representative, South African representative at Geneva. He stayed in Geneva as the International Labour Organization. He was representing South Africa there. So I'm trying to say again, these were quality people who were running civic aid. And therefore, we had a direction. And I still remember some people saying, Nina Ngubo, you are mad. You want them to march, you want to do this. But I used to reply, Mobuti, yes, we may be mad, but there is method in our madness. Because missing is like we actually see is into happening. How did we break? And we were asking ourselves, how do we break a hold? The government on Abantu Bagiti, especially in Ezini, because it was partly intimidating. Abantu basafuna ukukhuluma, abantu basafuna ukwenzani because bayakhishwa nasezindlini nayo yonke lonto. And we recognized there was one thing, be clear, be bulala abantu bakithi, because if our Badalanga, one of the things obviously they did was who gets and then you are forced to go and pay. By the way, this is what is still happening today. Maushale Crystal Park, what happens there is that if you don't pay, so we decided that one fight we are going to do is actually isolate ESCOM, Isuge, Because what was happening as we were researching and looking into this thing, then they would add something for themselves, and then they would pass this to so-called Daveyton City Council, where they are adding something for Bona to enable them to get them salaries, and then the total bill, it was becoming difficult. And so we decided, the best thing to break this hold, Tina, like Daveyton, I'm not talking as in now, maybe together with what was called the Whiteville Concerned Residents Committee, we decided we were going to separate the ESCOM from Ipinoni and the Nati. We want to pay directly to the ESCOM, so that we can buy directly from the ESCOM, and then nobody is holding anybody on card. And I must tell you this, of course, is some of those things which led to detentions Abantu, deaths Abantu, because Amapungu realized that this is going to be a problem, and we did. What did we do? I must tell you something, we want to come out Zedong, or as they discovered, to Mao Zedong. He says, when in Mao Zedong, and you fundamental I understand what I'm going to say. Uti Mao Zedong, there is nothing you will achieve on the negotiating table which we have not already achieved on the battlefield. There is nothing you will achieve on the negotiating table which you have not already achieved on the battlefield. And so what did we do? We decided to go on the battlefield. We started then getting Abantu to boycott the Pinoni town. There was no not meet mall or there was nothing like that. Pinoni was Pinoni, we boycotted the Pinoni. And we boycotted and said we will not buy until we are able to negotiate directly in the ESCOM. We then set up in meetings the ESCOM to say, what is your problem in selling to us? There's all the infrastructure you need to put electricity through to a Daveyton, even as a Whiteville. What is your problem? And they said, no, we don't have a problem. We said, sure, they said they don't have a problem. Then, of course, we told the Pinoni, we don't want to buy electricity from you again, or from the Daveyton Council. We want you to Abandabamyama Lai at Daveyton and Whiteville. We want you to supply electricity there. That was a problem for Bona. But when we boycotted the shops, when we marched, when we did because I think we will actually show some of these things later on. That's right. So, when we started marching, started boycotting, you will see some areas into thousands and thousands of Abantu. When we started marching, go Pinoni, Gupi, and whatever, and so on, the business people was Pinoni started talking to their council, but why are we suffering? Because these guys simply want Musi who came directly to ESCOM. Why must you be trying to do that? And so, I'm sorry we pinned a land again. You know, like Daveyton, who was a glass with his baleg and a baleg. I'm up when they trick away one. Magiwa Bezobama decided to act with detention. The first person who made right Daveyton with detention. Before we feel over in Abanya, the first person who was Kosan. I don't know for some reason now, but every time they never missed. I don't know why, but they always got onto him, Kali. And then from there on, everybody we are Banega from. The owner Banega, unfortunately, Bob told him, But just like all the others now, used to suffer like that and so forth. I think for us, I'll tell you, the civic and Yamamoto Aubrey and all others, this is one of the most detained people like Daveyton. So, at the end, I want to tell you this very important. If businessmen, we went to address the Muslims who wanted to talk to us, I was saying Daveytonville, because they wanted us to give them a sort of exemption. And we said, unfortunately, guys, we cannot give you any exemption. We are against the business, and people saying Guti Ahmad mustn't go there. So the long and short of it, we said, you can help us by not paying these business people. And by the way, the business people in Benoni, some of them were councillors. The people were owning, remember, like the people were owning Benoni boards and all those things were councillors in Benoni. So they were getting hurt because then the Muslims decided not to pay them now as well. And this, of course, culminated in this signing. That was Avi Nyalunga, that's me on the other side there. So this is what we signed. I have also the document, what it meant. And that, for me, was a victory for Tina Sonke, because from there on it meant we are going to now pay directly to ESCOM. And by removing Benoni Council from there on, automatically what was called the Daveyton Council did not get any cent from Abantu. And that's why the Daveyton Council collapsed. Otomboy and others decided to resign. Because it was clear there's no more money, as I told. So, look at what does it say now. And we were then trying to get one Benoni and so forth. But here is the lesson here, comrades. These struggles and Kulmangazo, starting from all those toothless structures as Bekona. Unfortunately, it's not everyone who did that. Even the very great Soweto did not do that. And that is what their problem is. Because there is a third man, Pagati. The ordinary people Bab'James, but imagine city power. City power is supposed to pay you ESCOM. But the city power is and so now as well, you must appreciate this. In the Free State, Nabubi, people pay. They pay their council, but the council there is middlemen. And that is why people who did not get this direct access to ESCOM, even through Egurulane, you pay through Egurulane, and of course, so ESCOM wants Maniaki. If you want to understand the Kulmangayo is like this, like Daveyton, you pay your rates, we are electricity, and that's it. But it's not like that at Crystal Park. When I battle for 4,000, electricity is hambi, then one tax the day pay electricity, that amount of electricity. It won't be renewed until Zupata is all using this corner. I'm sure when the Battle Crystal Park will get me out on that. So I am saying this is effectiveness, your opposition. And I was talking about these. I didn't bring one element here because they talked about the establishment in Daveyton. And in Daveyton today in Kuru, 1966, people were moved from a Daveyton, an old township as a Benoni. And they were then moved to Daveyton without any compensation. They were moved here without any compensation. And this restitution, which of course is the move 50,000, is something I don't want to get into. I was not here during that period of time, about 50,000. But frankly, if you ask me, I would have resisted that. I would have told those people to resist that, because I don't think that was actually adequate compensation. But I will not go to that foot. Asked me to include the establishment in Daveyton, like I was trying to, I wanted to do it more on a narrative way, rather than on the intellectual side of things. I've asked myself, what is the way forward in this place in Daveyton, under the new dispensation, under this new government, and under the Eguruleni municipality, we as a Daveyton, as Patiala. And as I say, we having actually laid the foundation when we're talking about the Greater Benoni, because we say, you can't share Zogelezindonina on your own and then without us coming in. And of course, when I left at the end of 93, and Obamatumula and others took over, which was the cornerstone, of course, here like that, is that my opinion, which is where I said I want to be arrogant in Nigeze opinion, is that I believe a difference about our civic, and the civic is a community organization. There were these people, as I said, from all different parties and things, and orientation, ideology, whatever you want to call it. We were concerned, we were common in that we were committed to the community. We were committed to the community. And that is what I see lacking as a commitment to the community by any of these organizations and any of these parties. I'll tell you now, I am a member of the African National Congress. I'm a member of the ANC. It doesn't stop me from raising within the ANC. I will not criticize ANC like I'm doing. Never, will never do that, because I'm a member of the ANC. I would rather, when I criticize the Minung Turuge as a member of the ANC, but I will not criticize the ANC. But I'm unhappy about many things, and that I will tell you. I'm not happy at corruption, which I see publicized in Yonke Land and this easy. But bottom line is that an organization, which is an organization, I'm expecting to see much more from you on. And it is this commitment in it. And as an old veteran with Sanko, I do believe there is much which can be done. There is much which Sanko can do to change these names. We should be changing those things. Every time he's born as young Tasuga, in fact, even when we were in Klademoki, in Klade Tatoni, honestly, it sickens me. Because I know people who died trying to change the status quo. And I believe Sanko must be on the forefront here. I'm unhappy, Moguti. The levels as a poverty are being inflicted by some of our councillors, irrespective of Bagupi. And I'm saying Sanko should be standing up like that. What and when last? People could not have put their lives on the line simply because they wanted to make certain individuals with Babe rich. If we are for the community, then the way we conduct ourselves must show that we are for the community. I see deterioration. When Daveyton was established, even up to over 1994, before Kadilo Kuza, there were a lot of non-governmental organizations. Lama old age home, Akona, it's because of Dala Bakala, or Mama Rose Tabula, the Sambana. the disabled, NGOs on the poverty, the disabled, sport, and none. They were NGOs. Today, nobody wants to serve anybody. And I think it is a job we have a shot. And I say Sango must be in the forefront to be able to raise Wongela NGOs. If we can do that, this township here, it is not going to be everything like you find abantu. Akukho nto ethile yi-ANC. Udodo ulahliwe lapho kwabanjani yi-ANC. Kuyabanda. Yini ukubanda? Hayi ANC bachile Daveytons. Abafati Daveytons. We have become, as Bob was saying, armchair critics. So here's my last word again. But if there's anything after that, problem, endurance. The survivor. We enjoyed being a Nandana when about Mazalbeit we put in here in 1955. Neither was it also an enjoyable thing. 1966, I can show you as near with how much it cost. I got you all the information here. I can show you it be Malini, and how long it took. And when people were taken from them, dumped like Daveyton, then they've had to get them a train to go there and what have you. A big slice along follow-up. So poverty was really, and I would have thought we, as a civic, have got to be fighting for some of those things. How do we improve? Today we are also, if victims of mistakes, we are told Abanye Babu were involved with demolishing the railways, lines which got in we civic, Nkuluma because I was part of the civic, we had a discussion about Bamatex. We were confronting Amatex in President. When we were marching, for example, we would tell them, if you 10 rand, they went down, but I'm saying 5 rand. No, we pay 5 rand. We did that. So I'm just trying to say, we need to do more as a community. Is in Tongeres, is in Zagadel. And in the accountability is very important, if we've got to be able to say he must pay the price for it. We cannot cover up for his interest wrong. It doesn't matter whether he cancel a party or cancel a party. He wrong might be wrong. And if we do that, this Daveyton will arise. I don't say it be perfect, it be wrong, but magic it worse.